Don't ever work for someone you don't want to become. Efficiency is highly overrated. Goofing off is highly underrated. If you repeated what you did today 365 more times, will you be where you want to be next year? A few nuggets of advice from Kevin Kelly, the co-founder of Wired magazine and an all-round really interesting human being. Every year on his birthday, Kevin Kelly compiles a list of all the things he wishes he had known along the way. The latest collection marks his 70th birthday, and Kevin Kelly is here today to share a little of that life wisdom with you. I like this one. Being able to listen well is a superpower, Kevin Kelly says. While listening to someone you love, keep asking them, is there more? Until there is no more.
It's just a really good thing in marriage, and when there's an issue with my wife or she has about something, and there is a sense in which the first version of things is just the first version. And then there's a second version, which is a little deeper and a little bit maybe truer. We humans kind of need encouragement to do a little bit more work in getting to the bottom of things, and we kind of need other people to help us see ourselves.
Some of the advice you're going to hear is about living a good life, getting along with other people, but some of it verges on the cosmic.
I see technology as having its origins at the Big Bang. In that sense, I see it as in the same long arc as life. And to any degree that you would see a kind of reflection of the divine in life, I would say I see a reflection of the divine in technology.
Kevin Kelly doesn't shy away from the question of what he believes. But when you ask that question of a really original thinker, the answer is going to be a little complicated.
I call myself a follower of Jesus, but it's the kind of cosmic Jesus, meaning that there are kind of like two different versions of the world. One is which the universe always existed and it was never created. And the other one is that there was a God that was never created that then made the universe. And both of those are completely unacceptable and ridiculous, right? I mean, it's like both of them have problems, but I prefer the story of God.
Kevin Kelly coming up as we kick off a new season of Tapestry. Back on the mothership for this one, coming to you from the CBC Broadcast Centre in Toronto for the first time since March 2020. I'm Mary Hynes. Hello to you. Kevin Kelly would be the last guy to reduce people to their job descriptions. But in his case, it's almost inescapable. His projects over the years give you a pretty good clue as to who he is. Kelly's title at Wired magazine is Senior Maverick. Back in the 1980s, he dreamed up something called the Whole Earth Catalog, a countercultural magazine which Steve Jobs once said was a bit like Google way before Google existed. The way Jobs put it, it was idealistic and overflowing with neat tools and great notions. In more recent years, Kevin Kelly has been on the board of the Long Now Foundation, a group of people building a clock and a library designed to last 10,000 years. The idea behind the project is to urge people to think about long-term responsibility, what we owe the future. Kevin Kelly is someone profoundly interested in technology, in what comes next for humanity, and in how to approach that future with optimism. Kevin Kelly is my guest. Hi there.
Hey, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
It's wonderful to have you here. You've been on my dream list for, I can't even tell you how many years. And you've recently turned 70. Happy birthday. And it was the people all around you who got a big present. And that present is this collection of wisdom, the 103 things you wish you had learned when you were a little younger. And we're going to delve right into this, Kevin Kelly. I don't think you've given them to us in any particular order. But I am curious about what's the one piece of guidance with the most potential to make someone's life better. If hard pressed, could you give me one?
Well, yes, I could. And it's an ancient one that's not my own, and it's the Golden Rule. And it is a source of all goodness in the world, as far as I can tell, which is, treat others like you want to treat them. You want them to treat yourself, and try and take their perspective on things. And from that flows all good things. So if you can remember that various times in your life, you will be a better person. And it took me kind of a while to kind of internalize that and to understand that that was not just the basis of friendship, but also like marketing or design. You are trying to inhabit someone else's perspective in order to design something. So it's a very, very good and deep one piece of advice.
Was there a moment when you realized you had internalized it, when you thought, okay, this isn't just something I've heard a billion times and it's washing over me and I'm barely hearing it at this point, but wow, this is the real deal. This is profound and it matters.
I worked with somebody, like a mentor, who was very persuasive. He had this amazing ability to kind of persuade people to do things. And I watched him do that with others and upon me. And it turned out that it was kind of a form of empathy that he was able to persuade, because he was getting into the head of the other person and giving reasons from their perspective about why they should do something. And it was a form of the Golden Rule. And that was sort of, it's not just about being nice. It's just this powerful positioning, this powerful perspective that allows you to do all kinds of things, including being persuasive.
Well, here's what I don't want people to take away from this. Adhere to the Golden Rule and you'll be a better marketer, because I don't think that's what you're saying. That sounds so crass.
It is, but that is where I got the aha. So you asked, was there a moment? And I'm saying yes. When I realized that it was crass as well as beautiful and golden.
I guess some things are. Some things are crass and beautiful and golden. Well, because this is a show and a podcast about what we like to call the messy business of being human. I really want to start with this one, this nugget of yours. We are not bodies that temporarily have souls. We are souls that temporarily have bodies. When you say soul, what are we talking about here?
We're talking a little bit maybe what a secular person might describe as, the ego and the id, that sense of a person's sense of I, the capital I inside their head. And it's the intangible. It's the kind of emergent phenomena that isn't located in any one part, but it's this emerges from our being. And it's the thing that we would say persists even as the rest of our bodies and lives change. It's that persistent thing that is, again, very hard to describe. So it's pretty clear to most people that we have a very tangible carcass, a skeleton vehicle of our bodies, and we have something else that is intangible. And I would say it's towards the intangible aspect of us.
And some of this is really hard to put into words. I mean, it defies language in many ways, and yet here we are, on the radio trying to make this coherent. Are you a religious believer yourself?
I am a religious believer. I call myself a follower of Jesus, but it's the kind of cosmic Jesus, meaning that I believe that there are many, many galaxies in the world, and many, many suns and stars and trillions of planets, inhabitable planets with civilizations on them, and beings, sentient beings that are infinite. And so I think there are many kind of relationships with this all-powerful entity behind this whole thing. There are kind of like two different versions of the world. One is which the universe always existed and was never created. And the other one is that there was a God that was never created that then made the universe. And both of those are completely unacceptable and ridiculous, right? I mean, it's like both of them have problems. They're basically, we rebel rationally against either one. It's like, how can something have always existed or self-create itself out of nothing? It just doesn't make any sense. They're kind of frustrating, but I prefer the story of God. And I think it makes a better story. So that's the one that I kind of vote for.
Well, that leads us right into another one of your nuggets of birthday wisdom, also one I find quite cosmic. And this is life lessons will be presented to you in the order they are needed. Everything you need to master the lesson is within you. Once you have truly learned a lesson, you will be presented with the next one. If you are alive, that means you still have lessons to learn. I love this. And this one does suggest very tangibly that there is some higher intelligence or guide doling out all of these life lessons. How do you understand who or what that intelligence might be?
From my perspective, someone who looks at a lot at artificial intelligences these days and even studied animal intelligence to some degree is that it's very, very clear that such a being that created the universe is so far beyond us in our capabilities to comprehend it that, we can just make guesses. We can make kind of very lame guesses about it. And so I think we can make progress in that understanding. And I think we have as a species made progress because we are kind of inventing ourselves as we go along. I mean, we are literally inventing our humanity. We have a kind of intelligence that was not accessible to our ancestors. So I think we can make progress, but I still think we are so far short of understanding and comprehending how the universe works at the physical level and why we're here. I think any attempt to do that is good. I would preface my understanding as saying it is inevitably going to be really wrong. It's going to be kind of maybe in the right direction at the best. I think what we know so far is often captured by people who devote their lives to kind of figuring this out. And I think generally the kind of wisdom of the ancients, such as we just talked about, doing to others like you want them to do to you, are true. And so even though we don't know very much, I think we can know some things and be pretty certain about that. So when I think about the origins of stuff, some of the things that we can, I think, are certain is that good triumphs will over time triumph bad. That things are a little bit better than they were before. That in the end, good triumphs over evil. So that's kind of the level of certainty that I have. So I'm not certain by very much, but a few things I am certain of, and that's one of them. And I think it's borne out by the evidence.
I like your humility on this front, this idea that anything I say to try to point to whatever this higher wisdom is probably going to be really wrong, maybe wrong in a spectacular way. And when I get frustrated by that fact, because I feel that way too, I remember reading this Zen teacher who said, trying to figure this stuff out is like trying to explain electricity to your toaster.
It is. It's challenging, but just because it's challenging, just because it's difficult, doesn't mean that we should not do it. And that's the point I was trying to make, is that we can still have progress. We can still get better than we were before. We're far, far short from, knowing everything. And even in science, according to science, 95% of matter is dark matter, which is code for we have no idea what it is. And 95% of energy is dark energy, which is also code for we don't know what it is, but we know a lot. And so both can be true at the same time, where we overall have a minuscule amount of knowledge, but we do have knowledge, and we have more knowledge than we had last year. And so that's good.
You're with Tapestry on podcast and online and on CBC Radio 1. I'm Mary Hynes. My guest is the co-founder of Wired magazine, the writer, photographer, futurist, and thinker, Kevin Kelly. Kevin Kelly has a kind of radical optimism in the future and in humankind. It's an optimism you just don't see every day. He often says that by working together, creative, inventive human beings can accomplish anything we want. And in Kevin Kelly's view, that includes addressing the climate crisis. The way Kelly sees it, we have a moral obligation to be optimistic. Here's a clip from his TED Talk called "The Future Will Be Shaped by Optimists."
When we trust the future, one of the things that we are understanding is that future generations not only have a better living standards because of progress, but they also have more capability to solve problems because there's more knowledge and because they have better tools. And so we can trust that. We can trust the fact that in the future generations will be able to solve problems that we cannot solve ourselves. So that means that we should be optimistic, not because we believe that our problems are smaller than we thought. We should be optimistic because we believe that our capacity to solve problems is greater than we thought.
That was Kevin Kelly from his TED Talk, "The Future Will Be Shaped by Optimists." Kevin Kelly is my guest on this episode of Tapestry. You see only 2% of another person, and they see only 2% of you. Attune yourselves to the hidden 98%. How do you do that? How do you attune to the other 98%, which is hidden, somehow protected from your gaining access to it?
The very first step is to acknowledge that. And by the way, that 2%, it includes us, that we are opaque to ourselves. So it's not just that the other person's 2% is 98% is hidden, it's that our own 98% is hidden. We're very opaque to ourselves. And I was involved with a movement called the Quantified Self, which was trying to use technology to track ourselves. And that was kind of just one tiny little sliver of making ourselves more aware of ourselves by tracking our bodies. And instead of, getting your blood pressure measured once a year, you would do it all the time and you would have a record of it. And it was your emotions and all kinds of other things which we were interested in tracking to make ourselves more visible to ourselves. I think all the things that people talk about, from journaling to meditation, to try and see those other parts that tend to be hidden, and then to do the same thing with others in terms of being aware and asking questions, having conversations, difficult conversations, simply knowing that there may be other things going on and giving them that kind of slack may be all that we can do. We may not see it, but we can also say, well, there's something happening there. They're angry for a reason I can't see, but it may be a legitimate reason, and therefore I'm going to give them a little slack. And so we don't ever necessarily see it, but we can still make accommodations for it.
That touches on another birthday nugget of yours that makes a lot of sense to me. I think this is a pretty rare quality, possibly coming so rare it's on the way to extinction. And your guidance here is being able to listen well is a superpower. While listening to someone you love, keep asking them, is there more? Is there more? Until there is no more. Can you tell me about a time, Kevin Kelly, when you kept asking, is there more? And yes, in fact, there was more, and you would have missed it entirely if not for that persistent question.
Well, it's just a really good thing in marriage, and thinking of when there's an issue, dissatisfaction, say, with my wife, there is a sense in which the first version of things is just the first version, and that you need to kind of say, well, Okay, I heard that, but is there more? What's sort of underneath that? And then there's a second version, which is a little deeper and a little bit maybe truer and more relevant. But then if you say, well, okay, I heard that, but is there more? And then you kind of like on the third round, you're kind of getting closer to what's really the issue. If you're patient enough, you can go another round. And so we humans kind of need encouragement to kind of really do a little bit more work in getting to the bottom of things. And it's partly the fact that we're opaque to ourselves, and we kind of need other people to help us see ourselves. And that kind of a conversation, person A is helping person B get a little insight into their own selves by not accepting the initial answers as adequate and saying, no, I think there's more here.
I'm going to cheat here for a minute, Kevin Kelly, and sneak one in from I think this was your 68th birthday list. Being enthusiastic is worth 25 IQ points. As a very enthusiastic person, I love this. So am I to take that you're not really a fan of playing it cool, ironic detachment from the things that you love?
Yes, right. I'm not very ironic at all. And I am very enthusiastic about things, and I'm not the brightest, smartest person, genius in the world. So that's based on my own experience, where I can participate with a lot of really smart people because I have a lot of enthusiasm for cool new things.
Are you still making art every day? I've been following your AI co-creations.
I was, for a full year, I made art every day, and the year was up last Thursday, I think. And then the last 2 weeks of that year, I was making art by myself the entire year, except for the last 2 weeks when I started to co-create them with an AI called Midjourney. So as of today, no, I'm not making my daily art, but I did progress tremendously from a year doing it every day. I got an iPad a year ago, and I got a program called Procreate on the iPad, which was $10, and it was just amazing. It enabled me to kind of do all kind of art, and I did all varieties of things for the entire year and posted them on my Instagram and Twitter. But after a year, and particularly after coming into the Midjourney AI was so powerful. It was doing lots of things that I wanted to do, but it was doing them better. I decided after a year to do something else every day for a year. That I kind of learned everything I was going to learn from doing the art every day for a year. So now I'm thinking of doing something different for a coming year.
And have you settled on something yet, or you're auditioning a few possibilities?
I'm auditioning. I'm looking at writing something small, maybe a little story or something. The advantages of doing art was that for me, it was very relaxing. I really loved doing it. Writing, I should be doing, but I don't really love to write. It's very painful for me. It's just hard. But photography is something I love to do. And so I might do something with photography, making things I love to do. So anyway, I should be writing more, but man, I just hate to write.
I would never have guessed that from you. You've been writing for a very long time.
The whole point of the advice is to see how little I could write. how few words I could use. That's more my style.
So maybe a haiku every day. Yeah. Like just keep it really tight.
Well, I did. One time I rode my bicycle across the U.S. When I was younger, and I kept a notebook, and I did a haiku every day, a haiku and a sketch. And that was much more my speed, which I just have to do 3 lines, 7 syllables. And so I like the idea of seeing how few words I can produce a day.
You are listening to Tapestry on CBC Radio 1, on Sirius XM satellite radio, on podcast, on CBC Listen, and online at cbc.ca. I'm Mary Hynes. Today's episode, a lifetime's worth of wisdom from Kevin Kelly, the writer, photographer, futurist, tech guru, and thinker. On his 70th birthday, not long ago, Kevin Kelly shared a collection of life hacks, which he describes as bits of wisdom I wish I'd known when I was young. Kevin Kelly does this on his birthday every year. The 2022 edition is up to 103 bits of guidance. A few of those nuggets now for your consideration, read by Tapestry producer Arman Iqbali.
The biggest lie we tell ourselves is that I don't need to write this down because I will remember it. About 99% of the time, the right time is now. Cultivate 12 people who love you because they are worth more than 12 million people who like you. When you forgive others, they may not notice, but you will heal. Forgiveness is not something we do for others. It is a gift to ourselves. Making art is not selfish. It's for the rest of us. If you don't do your thing, you're cheating us. 3 things you need. The ability to not give up something till it works. The ability to give up something that does not work. And the trust in other people to help you distinguish between the two. When you have some success, the feeling of being an imposter can be real. Who am I fooling? But when you create things that only you, with your unique talents and experience, can do, then you are absolutely not an imposter. You are the ordained. It is your duty to work on things that only you can do.
Tapestry producer Arman Iqbali with some of Kevin Kelly's best life advice. You've been noticing the space where technology and spirituality meet for a long time. And I'm wondering what you'd say to people, many people, I'm guessing, who automatically think of technology and spirituality as being mutually exclusive. Where the one lives, the other must be absent.
Right. Yeah, no, I see technology as having its origins at the Big Bang, meaning that it's not a human endeavor. It's part of creation in a certain sense. It's of the same nature as life itself. And I say it's actually kind of like the seventh kingdom of life. It's an extension and acceleration of self-organizing forces that have made life and then made minds and then making technology from minds. And so in that sense, I see it as in the same long arc as life. And to any degree that you would see a kind of reflection of the divine in life, I would say I see a reflection of the divine in technology.
Where do you see that in technology?
If you kind of ask yourself the thing that biologists do not allow themselves to ask, which is like, what is the purpose or what's the direction in evolution? There's a large camp that says there's absolutely no direction in evolution at all. There's a smaller camp who says there is theological directions at the broad scale, and I'm in that camp. And that those directions in evolution are towards diversity, specialization, mutualism, which is codependent on other things, energy density. There's a bunch of them, and I outline them in my book, What Technology Wants. And that's the short answer, is that technology is headed in those same directions that life has been moving. And so in that sense, what it's moving towards, what technology is moving towards, is this kind of the same direction that life is moving, which is filling the universe with possible varieties, increasing choices, more freedoms, and possibilities that themselves open up yet more possibilities. And so in the way that when we invent a new technology, it often will be a tool to enable us to make even more technologies. In the same way that in life, every species that would kind of be developed, evolved, would fit into an ecosystem, and rather than filling the ecosystem, they actually expand it by making it possible for even more species to find a niche. I mean, it's kind of a very weird thing. It wasn't like there's a fixed number of species that could be in a certain area, we would measure the richness of life in like a meadow or a ocean reef by the fact that there's all these species crammed into this space. And the more species there are, the more opportunities for other species to find a niche. It's kind of like an economy where the more varieties that people are working, it kind of makes it possible for even more people to find an occupation. And so that kind of ever expanding sense of opportunities is, for me, a reflection of the divine. I think that's holy.
So if we were to bring this to the level of tangible stuff, what would you say is a tool or a practice, a piece of tech that perhaps enables human beings to be more in touch with the spiritual element of who we are?
I think we invented reading and writing, the alphabet, and then books. Someone attempting to write down and to disseminate something in their head to other people, which we have been using books to do, to infect someone else with the same idea they have, is still one of the best ways to try and get a sense of the cosmic, something that we don't ordinarily deal with on a day-to-day, to put ourselves in touch with something bigger than ourselves. Culture itself is one thing that's bigger than ourselves. I think putting us into touch with that larger picture, history, is a fabulous tool for putting ourselves in for something bigger than ourselves, because we can see that there is this long, long history, this arc, and that gives us a sense of something bigger than ourselves. I think, at a mundane level, telescopes and, the recent telescopes we're sending into space, which gives us the view of billions of galaxies. I mean, if you look at that and not feel some sense of awe, I don't know, you may be a robot. That is going to engender, I think, a sense of awe and appreciation for the cosmic nature of where we are. I think there's plenty that we're doing with technology that can expand our sense of who we are.
I was so excited about pursuing this line of questioning with you, and not 90 minutes ago on Twitter, some guy says, for fun, I'm starting a list of the most grandiose, religious-sounding tech quotes I can find. Hey, everybody send suggestions. And of course, what follows is, people piling on saying, I wish these tech bros wouldn't sound so spiritual and smug. How do you counter the view that when someone says something like, and here's one that's been offered, AI is one of the most important things humanity is working on. It's more profound than, I don't know, electricity or fire. Here's another one. The great unfinished task of the modern world is to turn death from a fact of life into a problem to be solved, a problem towards whose solution I hope to contribute in whatever way I can. Is there a line for you between celebrating what you see as being a divine aspect of technology and sounding kind of, smug and ridiculous about it?
Yeah, I'm not afraid of ridiculous, because this is actually, I think, one of the bits of advice I was saying, that is, most breakthroughs were ridiculous the day before they happened. In fact, if they weren't considered ridiculous, they weren't really a breakthrough. And so I think hype is a small price, a small tax to pay for enthusiasm and optimism. So I'm not bothered too much by the hype. Yeah, you discount it, you mark it for what it is. It goes along with breakthroughs and things that have changed our lives, like antibiotics and telecommunications. Okay, there's plenty of hype around it. Okay, so fine. Is there going to be hype around AI? Absolutely. Is there going to be hype around life extension? Absolutely. But so what? It's just a small cost. So I'm not really bothered by that smugness or arrogance. I think it isn't necessary. I would like to see less of it, but I'm not going to count what it's connected to. It's just kind of, a mark of humans' foible, their tendencies. And so I accept a lot of meaning I understand that there's a tax. If you believe the best in people, you're sometimes going to be cheated. Okay, fine. In breakthroughs and making new things, there's going to be a fair amount of hyping and promotion and arrogance. But okay, so that kind of petty crime, that kind of pettiness around things, yeah. For me, it's not that I'm endorsing it. I'm just saying I will pay that pain. I will surrender that tax. I will accept that imperfection in order to get something better.
Yeah, I like how complicated that answer is. And I'm also getting the impression that you're not someone who's going to dump on exuberance and enthusiasm, even when it veers into something that's a bit annoying. Would that be accurate?
Yeah. It's like, Wired magazine that I co-founded, we were guilty of exuberance and hype. There's a very common strategy in the media world to make your headline. You kind of simplify, and then you exaggerate it. So that kind of exaggeration is, in some senses, part of the process of seeing things. In writing about things, to make it clear, you often have to round the corners of things. You have to kind of overlook something that's a fact or whatever it is. In order to make something clear, you're giving up something. And so it's not completely correct in that sense because you've omitted a certain fact. Well, the virtues of making it clear can outweigh that omission. It's not that it's wrong, it's just that you didn't include everything, but you did include everything in order to make it clear. And so it's incomplete truth that's exaggerated, but that exaggeration serves as a function.
You are listening to Tapestry on CBC Radio 1, on Sirius XM satellite radio, on podcast, on the CBC Listen app, and online at cbc.ca.
Hi, my name's Arman Iqbali. I'm a producer of Tapestry. Kevin Kelly has a penchant for optimism, but optimism doesn't mean being blind about bad potential futures. Kevin used to be executive editor for Wired magazine. In 1997, the tech magazine published an article called The Long Boom that attempted to predict the bounty waiting for people living in the far-off world of 2022. But the future described in the article wasn't all rosy. It also listed how things could go wrong over the next 20 years. Here's some ideas they came up with, and they may sound familiar. Major ecological crises causes a global climate change that, among other things, disrupts the food supply, causing big price increases everywhere and sporadic famines. The cumulative escalation in pollution causes a dramatic increase in cancer, which overwhelms the ill-prepared health system. An uncontrollable plague, a modern-day influenza epidemic or its equivalent, takes off like wildfire. So, spooky, huh? Well, these were just a few of Wired Magazine's predictions from 1997 for the present day. Now, let's get back to Mary Hynes and Kevin Kelly.
I want to ask you about something you've called the 50-year passion project, which is Vanishing Asia, in which you have traveled extensively throughout Asia as a photographer, trying to document aspects of life and aspects of the world around people in Asia, disappearing aspects of life. Do you have mixed feelings about that fact, given that you are such a staunch believer in progress, and yet in many ways progress is dismantling what you've come to love as a beautiful part of the world that is beginning to disappear?
Yeah, so for 50 years, I was photographing remote parts of Asia. So it's huge. I mean, easily half the people on the planet live in Asia. And I was photographing the things that are disappearing in very rapidly, from costume to traditions, festivals, foods, architecture. Even though I spent 50 years documenting, this book has 9,000 images of stuff that is beautiful, gorgeous, but often on its way out. And I don't have much nostalgia for it because a lot of the things that looked beautiful and were gorgeous had reasons for why they were there that don't make sense anymore. So I understand why they were going out. They're going out in part because hundreds of millions of young people have left villages to go live in cities. And if I was in Asia, I would do exactly the same thing. I'd buy the one-way bus ticket to the capital city, where there is far more choices and opportunities than there is in these beautiful villages, where people have organic food and they have very strong families. They know what they're about, but they're going to be exactly the same thing as their mother and father. Maybe a farmer if they're a guy, and a mother if they're a female, and they want to become a ballerina or a mathematician, so they're going to go to the city. And some of the things that look beautiful, there are all kinds of reasons why they look beautiful, but houses are not necessarily the best to live in. There's no plumbing, they're drafty and mosquito ridden. So people want to live in a concrete box and with Wi-Fi, and that's what I would do too. So no, I don't have much nostalgia for it because that past could be bettered. There is a diversity there that I think is valuable to know about, because I think in those old ways that are disappearing can be some of the ideas for the new ways. So there's much to be learned from that, even though it's on its way out for good reasons. But those solutions, those design solutions, have in them the genesis of new stuff. And that's why I think we should pay attention to them, not to save them, but to breed them, to use them as genesis, to use them as seeds for something new.
And the romantic in me is saying, I'm really happy for that young mathematician leaving the village and moving to the capital, but I don't want to buy 3 volumes of photography on condos in Beijing, that have great Wi-Fi. Do you know what I mean?
You're right. The kinds of new things that people are making in the beginning aren't going to be buildings and stuff. They're doing, they're going to be in the metaverse. They're going to be stuff weird, but there is new diversity. There's a famous pyramid called Maslow's hierarchy, which in fact he never actually drew, but we all draw it for him, where there's at the base of the pyramid, the big the big area at the bottom is it's people's needs, and they're fulfilling their basic shelter and clothing. And that as they fulfill those lower levels of needing to belong to things and then having some kind of identity, that they climb this pyramid. And at the very, very top, there's a smaller area at the tippy top, which is self-actualization, self-realization. And I think what's happening is that there is a general convergence around the world of the lower hierarchy, where the basic needs of clothing and shelter and food are kind of going to be the same. So you could take a picture of any city in the world, and you probably can't tell where it is if you took away the language of the signs. People wearing the same sneakers, same T-shirts, have got the same computers, the same doors, anyway. And they're all living in these concrete boxes with Wi-Fi and air conditioning and running water. But what happens is that while there's a kind of convergence and homogeny at that level, what people get out of it, what they think it means, who they think they are, is diversifying. We get these new occupations and people doing things that they have their title is one of a kind. There are people who are getting to very, very weird, niche-y things that have never existed before and are way beyond, just the typical occupations of a farmer, blacksmith, and truck driver. And so that's where the diversity is coming. It's coming at this level of your identity, what you think it is, the purpose of what you're doing, and why you think you're here. We're seeing incredible diversity there. And that's not just showing up as clothing and as buildings, but as in other ways.
So just as we wrap up here, if you could go back and tell your younger self something really good about this year, 2022, what's something you would say to him?
We had a remarkable invention of a global cooperation of developing a vaccine for a very contagious and destructive virus. And we did it in a few years, and we applied it around the world. And as inferior and as we could see so many ways that could be improved, but still it was an amazing achievement that would have been unthinkable even 20 years ago. And that's just an amazing thing that we should be very enthusiastic about.
Kevin Kelly, it's so good to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you for your great questions. I really enjoyed it. It was fantastic. You got me thinking, so thank you.
Kevin Kelly is the co-founder of Wired Magazine, a writer, photographer, and thinker. That's it for us this week. This episode was produced by Arman Egbali. The senior producer is Rosie Fernandez. I'm Mary Hynes. Thank you for listening.